Hello viewers, welcome back on board, and in this particular session I'll be discussing change of subject formula. Now it's a common practice in mathematics for the examiner to ask you to make a particular variable in a formula the new subject or formula, and whenever this is asked or this is expected of you, it's just to carry out some mathematical operations like cross and multiply, like square and the rest, clear a fraction to be able to rearrange a particular formula with one of the variables on the right hand side being the new subject of formula. So that's the essence of this particular video, this particular session, where I will guide you on how to be able to change and evaluate a given mathematical formula. Now on the screen you can see that whenever the subject of a formula is to be changed, the intention of course is always to make a new quantity to stand alone. That's what we mean by change of subject formula. You want to change a particular formula, the subject of it, from one of the variables to another variable. You just carry out some mathematical exercises that will successfully allow you change from the previous formula to another of the variable being the subject of formula. And of course the operation here is very simple. We have the rules, as you can see on the screen, which you must always take into cognizance when you are trying to evaluate a particular formula. The first rule there, of course, is for you to clear all the brackets, clear all the fractions, and also the root signs if they exist. You know, if you have a bracket, you are going to expand it. If you have a fraction, you are going to clear it by taking the LCM. And if you have a root sign, you are going to remove it. If it is square root, you are going to square it, and the rest of it. Now the second rule, as you can see on the screen, is for you to be able to rearrange the formula you have such that the terms containing the new subjects are on one side and the other terms are on the other side. This is what we call collecting like terms. Okay, after you finish clearing all the fractions, the root signs, and of course the brackets, you need to rearrange, you need to collect like terms. Terms containing the new subject should be on one side, and the other terms that doesn't have the new subject should be on the other side. That's what we call collecting like terms. And finally, you have to simplify as far as possible. That is, any mathematical exercise that is possible, you need to be able to simplify the resulting guy you have left. Alright, so on the screen we take an example. Of course, the period of a simple pendulum is given to mean t will be equals to 2 pi the square root of L over G. Some of you that are science students, talking about physics students, you understand what I mean. Now that's the formula you have for finding the period of a simple pendulum. Alright, so if you have this and you can see that the subject of formula here is t, capital T. Let's say we are to make this small letter g the length of the thread of the pendulum the subject of formula. So we have to make our L the subject of formula here. So we have t is equals to 2 pi the square root of L over G. Now when you have L is inside the root sign, so you have to find a way to clear it. And how do we remove the root sign? We square both sides. So we are going to square both sides of the equation. So on the left hand side I'm going to have t square, and on the right hand side I'm going to have 2 pi square root of L over G all squared. Alright, so I square both sides. So yeah, I'm going to have t square is equals to, if I square 2 pi I have 4 pi square. Okay, that is, you square 2 you have 4, square pi you have pi square. The square is going to affect everything there. Alright, so squaring 2 pi will give us 4 pi square. And if I square the square root of L over G, then the square and square root will cancel. You should know that by now, that if you have square root of x all square, squaring that will cancel the square root away. Alright, so the square root is gone, so I have L over G left. Okay, so here we have L over G. So here I can just cross and multiply because it's a fraction, and of course there is multiplication between 4 pi square and L, so we can cross and multiply. That means that division sign can cover all of them. It's still the same thing. But if it were to be a plus or a negative sign there, then you need to find LCM and join it together first. So here we have a multiplication sign between 4 pi square and L. So that means this divided by L can be written as all divided by G. Okay, so if we cross and multiply, we have t square G is equals to 4 pi square L. And to make L the subject, of course L has 4 pi square as a coefficient, so we divide both sides by 4 pi square. So this divided by 4 pi square. So this and this will go. So this implies that L is equals to t square G t square g divided by 4 pi square. That is our new subject of formula. When you change a particular subject of formula, what you are just trying to do is to carry out some mathematical operations, add, multiply, subtract and the rest, and try to make a new variable of the formula to be your new subject of formula. It's a very simple process, and this is just what we have achieved, alright, with this particular example. Alright, I'll still love to take another example where we have x over a plus b plus y over b is equals to 1. X over a plus b plus y over b is equals to 1, and we are asked to make y the subject of formula. So we have x divided by a plus b, okay, x plus 1 plus y divided by b is equals to 1. That's the equation. We have x over a plus 1 plus y over b is equals to 1, and here we are to make y the subject of formula. Okay, so on the left hand side we have a fraction, and the first rule is for us to clear all the brackets and all the fractions if they exist. So on the left hand side we have a fraction which we are going to clear it. Now LCM of a plus b and b is b and a plus b. That's LCM of a plus b and b is both of them. Okay, so a plus 1 into a plus 1 here will go, and b will be left. So b times x will give me xb, plus b into itself here will go, a plus 1 will be left, times y will give me y into a plus 1. So this is equals to 1. We can cross and multiply, so we have xb or bx is the same thing, plus y of a plus 1 is equals to b into a plus 1. Okay, now here on the left hand side I have y that can expand that bracket, but I don't want to, since I'm trying to make y the subject. There is no need expanding the bracket again because you still need to factorize y out. Okay, so we just make that the subject. Y of a plus 1 is equals to y of a plus 1 is equals to b of a plus 1 minus bx. That's, we take bx on the left hand side to this other side, and if we make y the subject, now we divide both sides by the coefficient of y, which is a plus 1. Okay, so y alone here is equals to b of a plus 1 minus bx, all divided by a plus 1. That is our new subject. Alright, so we've succeeded in making y the subject, and that is how we can carry out that change of formula operation. And finally, I want to take one more example. Let's say we have y to be equals to n square root of 100 divided by maybe 4s, and we have to make s the subject of formula. We have to make small letter s the subject of formula. Alright, so what we are having here is y is equals to n square root of 100 divided by 4s. Now s is inside the square root sign, so what we do first, of course, is to square both sides. So if we square both sides, we have y square is equals to n square root of 100 over 4s, all squared. We square both sides. So here we have y squared to be equals to, we pick n and square, we have n square, and we square these square roots. Now we are going to have 100 divided by 4s, because square root square will always cancel, each other away. Alright, so y square is equals to, here we have n square 100 divided by 4s. We can cross and multiply. So we have y square 4s. Y square 4s is equals to n square 100. You can still write it as 100 n square. N square 100. See, the same thing. When I did binary operation with you, one of those rules I told you about numbers was that some operations in mathematics are commutative. Here we are having multiplication. N square 100 is the same thing as 100 n square, because multiplication is commutative. Alright, so if we are making s the subject, what we have with s is y square 4, or 4y square is the same thing. So if we make s the subject, we divide both sides of the equation with that. So we have s to be equals to 100 n square, which is still n square 100. Alright, divided by, what is standing with s here is 4y square. So we have divided by 4y square. That is the new subject of formula. Ladies and gentlemen and my good friends, that has been our session as far as change of subject is formula. As far as change of subject formula is concerned, and of course what I have pointed to you in this session is to establish that in a given formula you can be asked to change the subject of formula, and the idea here is to rearrange the formula and make one of the variables the subject. And of course, I pointed 3 rules that will always allow you to do that. First rule being that you have to clear all the fractions, all the brackets and the root signs if they exist. Second rule is for you to rearrange such that terms containing the new subject are on one side and the other terms that doesn't have the new subject on the other side. That's what you call collecting of like terms in mathematics. And finally is for you to simplify as far as possible. And of course, I've tried to show you some examples as far as this session is concerned. Don't go anywhere, always stick around and watch our next tutorial session. See you.